Hey everybody, I'm Nico.
And that makes me Kevo.
And that makes this X's for Comics, X-Men 97 Season 2 edition. We are time traveling, we're chrono skimming, we are time sliding, body sliding. We got a lot of stuff to do, and we got a lot of characters to talk about. It is so exciting to have X-Men 97 back, and it is so exciting to have it back with Kevo here to talk about it. With Kevo, thank you so much for gracing the show for the first time since, geez, that super fun Gargoyle special. So, I mean, you're in for all the animation.
Yeah, I guess I am. I am really excited to be back in the saddle for X's for Comics, and I'm really excited to be back in the saddle specifically for X-Men 97. It is such a cool thing that we are getting to see this be reinvigorated in such a fun way. It is the era of nostalgia. Some things don't hit the mark, but this definitely is. And season two, even just in the first two episodes we've watched, is really going even further than season one did in all of the best ways.
And it's interesting because I think season one was held back by a sense of linear narration. It wanted to tell a specific story in a very clear way that audiences would go, oh, this feels like a classic X-Men cartoon show. Whereas I do feel the fan service of season two is at a higher rate right off the bat, and they didn't waste our time. Something that I get really frustrated with about, I guess, general storytelling can be that moment where they say, oh, people might have forgotten because it's been 4 years since the last season, so we have to completely, rehash everything. The truth is, we can just go to our streamer and there's probably a recap, or we can watch the season again, or every single one of us goes on Reddit. We've got Wiki, we've got ways to get that information. And rather than play some kind of catch-up game, they let us jump right into the action, which was bold, exciting, and gave me something to latch onto right away.
And, the fact of the matter is we can't help that the second screen experience is something that is just a part of television now. A lot of people that I know, love, and respect just can't help that they are half on their phone when they are watching something now. It is what it is. But I really respect and admire any program that doesn't necessarily fully cater to things like that. They don't want you to get lost in the weeds, but they are not going to hold your hand and pretend that you can't just go back and watch, 10 episodes in the first season, right? Like, that's not a lot. If you love this thing so much, you can keep abreast. That is not their job to babysit you. It is their job to engross you in a really dynamic and enriching story. And that's really what they did. Both episodes tell such stories independently while continuing a narrative, even from the first into the second, in a way that is rewarding as a viewer. And that is so important. We didn't do a rewatch of season one before starting season two. I thought about potentially watching season one, but I was like, no, I want to go into it having not watched in a very long time and see how I feel instead, because that is part of the viewership they are trying to bring in, is people who are not watching it over and over again. And how does that feel? And I think it was great.
Especially because they sort of dispensed with the need to have seen season one. There's a lot of gratuitous Easter eggery that I really appreciated. I loved how much you had watched season one. If you had it in the front of your mind, you were paid out handsomely, but you didn't need it. They did such a good job. I think it's a 2-minute recap at the beginning, and they just run. I loved Madeline stuff because I'm a big Madeline fan, big Madeline apologist. I support women's rights and wrongs. And I love her, but I love that we didn't spend 3 or 4 minutes going, Nathan, kind of your mother was this kind of evil gene who is possessed of dark magic and clonery. There was no reason to get too in the weeds about that. And I do want to say, for the audience, hey, everybody, we're talking about the first 2 episodes only. On Friday, we're going to drop an episode with the third and fourth. And then next week, we're going to drop an episode right after the fifth comes out. So you're all caught up. We're all caught up. We're in the discussion. But I agree with you. The powerful thread that ran between the first two was who is Cable? And something that always kind of bothered me about the original animated series is I felt very much like we focused so much on a sanitized version of the Jim Lee era X-Men, that very famous cover of everybody fighting Magneto in the bubble, right? That it felt like we kind of just got classic whitewashed characters. Here, right away, we had Forge, we had Bishop, Storm has some really great moments. There was a lot elevating the show, and I do understand that, you know, the original had Storm, Rogue, Jubilee, and Jean, but I often felt like the original animated series was afraid of Storm's power, used Rogue often as kind of like a victim of her power. Jubilee was a dumb kid, and I was a dumb kid, so I can recognize it. I know what's up. And Jean was constantly passing out. Here, I felt like Mother Askani proved vital and exciting. Jean had drive and interests. Storm, while perhaps being more mired in her relationship than would be expected, had some incredible moments of power. There was just a dynamism shaping the identity of the character structure that I think shows elevated reflection.
Yeah, I really love all of that. I really appreciate how much you, as such a hardcore X-Men fan, can appreciate the ways in which they choose to change the story. You know, part of what is great about having all of this comic source material isn't necessarily doing a one-for-one adaptation, but trying to get the spirit of it. It's what I love so much about the MCU as well. I think that's what you need to be going for, and you know, you want to see these characters not necessarily in the blow for blow battles that you've already seen, but just come to life. And I think that's one of the best things that they have done so far. And seeing the way in which they are expanding the parameters after already going so far in season 1 with the Mutant Massacre and with Xavier's Mindscape with Lilandra. That was such a fascinating sequence. But yeah, like you said, they're not shying away from things like Storm's power right away in this first episode. It makes you wonder what they could even possibly have in store for her still, with so much left this season and still a pickup for next season.
And I do want to say one more thing before we deep dive into the conversation. The previous showrunner was an unusual thing in Hollywood. A queer man of color as the showrunner on a children's program. That is incredible. And it is unfortunate that in that position of power, there are accusations against him. Unfortunately, I believe not enough people side with victims, and I do. So it's not that I am saying, lock him up and throw away the key. But Beau DeMayo really did kind of have an opportunity here to do something one of a kind. The number of consistent complaints about his behavior, I don't think it's impossible that people could be manufacturing them, but it certainly isn't likely. And there's also a little bit to be discussed about the fact that Beau DeMayo had very sort of safe for work OnlyFans. You wouldn't open it at your desk, but if you had it open on your phone, you wouldn't be in too much trouble. It was mostly him in like jock straps and working out. After being deposed of the show, he would go on to make somewhat more adult scenes and then kind of disappear. It doesn't by any means hurt his credibility that he chose to engage in adult content, it shapes a little bit the nature of his desire for attention. And one of the things in his immediate removal from the series, he said was he knew as a fact that he was being removed from season 2's credits. However, in 2 episodes, one after another, his executive producer status is retained in the opening credits. So while I certainly am not here to give him points or credit or anything of the sort, I do want to just take a moment to say that this show, coming out as wonderfully as it has, I probably like the first 2 of this season more than the first 2 of last season, is a testament to the ability of everyone who remains with the show, considering the somewhat salacious nature of its production across these first 2 seasons.
I also want to make 2 points. The first of which is to agree with your last and say, yes, the thing is, this program was made by so many people. So many artists are always so involved in these things. It's something where I took a really long time for me after Charisma Carpenter and Amber Benson specifically came forward about Joss Whedon, and I took a really long time to find my way back to Buffy, and part of what helped me find my way back is the fact that there was such a creative team on that show, and it took so many people to grow and develop what Buffy became from the seed of Wanda the Immortal Waitress, Martha the Immortal Waitress. But you see, like, it's these things take teams. You know, it's not like Harry Potter where all of the ideas come from one person and one person's book. These things,
and that person is garbage.
And that person is horrible. But, you know, these television and film takes so many people, takes so much creative involvement, and that is really what this show is. Something I found while I was doing my, preliminary research was that the Wiki article points first to Bo DeMeo saying he was fired because he posted a Marvel fan art pride thing. And it really reminds me, everyone always needs to make sure to do all of their own research, read as much as they can, and also listen to people who were there for it. Because yeah, exactly, all of the context you're providing is very important. There was a lot of adult behavior going on, and frankly, a little bit too many people talking about inappropriate behavior for that not to be part of the conversation. And it is easy to obfuscate these things. So always make sure that you are doing your own research when it comes to these things. On all fronts, even when it comes to creatively, we're seeing all of the wonderful things they're doing on this program, but I think of a lot of the things they used to have to do creatively that they were held back by because of contracts and whatnot. So these things are all factors, and there's always stuff going on behind the scenes. So always do your research, kids.
And I so appreciate that you said do your research, because it's about understanding exactly that. People love to point at, it's been a really rough couple of months for superhero films, and I'm pretty devastated by the poor reaction to Supergirl. I love the Super Family, legitimately. One of my Christmas gifts from Kevo. I mean, I keep talking about it on air constantly, these Bitty Pops. I don't know why I'm obsessed with them.
Oh, they're so
small,
cute.
They can't be in the way. For Christmas this year, one of the things Kevo got me was Superman in his Fortress of Solitude. The Super Family has come to mean a lot to me. I really care for them. And I think that Supergirl is perhaps not loved enough because she is deemed secondary female cousin. Like, there's a lot of things, and so the failure of Supergirl as a film is pretty heartbreaking. It had one of the most significant second week drop-offs in superhero film history. Number 1 belongs to Joker for la Dieu, and number 2 belongs to the Marvels. Number 3 belongs to Supergirl. When people point to Nia Costa and say, that's why, well, that's not fair to say. It's because it didn't resonate with audiences, is why. But she also wasn't the only brilliant voice on it. Think about how long you sit in that theater while the credits roll as the VFX artists go and go and go and go. I swear I wish I had that kind of patience to sit there and read every name, but there's so many, it feels insurmountable. And speaking of so many, it feels insurmountable, I would like to name just a few of the characters that have appeared in this season so far. Scott, Jean, Storm, Logan, Beast, Rogue, Morph, Jubilee, Benno, Forge. We got the episode. Magneto, Nightcrawler, Bishop, multiple versions of Cable, Mother Askani, who herself is Rachel Summers. Multiple versions of Apocalypse appear. Psylocke finally being represented by an Asian voice actress. I'm so glad to see Nakamori be a part of this team. Sabretooth, Deathstrike, Mariko Yoshida, Colossus, Danger, Exodus, Boom Boom, Chamber, Penance, Dust. There are so many characters that are set to appear in this. It is so exciting. It is very elevating to know how many characters are going to clear this bar.
And that's even one of the things that came to mind when I was talking about the contracts that are involved with these sort of things, and what is so great about this time that we are in now, and why I don't begrudge nostalgia push, because there are so many more things that you can do with a lot of stuff these days. I think of the finale where we got all of the flashes of other heroes like Daredevil and Cloak and Dagger, and we saw off-duty Peter Parker with Mary Jane. Like, those were some great things.
And we won the jackpot.
And they were in their Spider-Man the Animated Series look. Like, that's a thing that we can do when stuff is all under one house, when it's being produced by teams that love these properties so much. It's what I love so much about that DuckTales animated series from 10 years ago that, frankly, I never finished, only by virtue of knowing I'm gonna love it. So when I really need something, I'm gonna go finish that.
I'm on DuckTales, Larry. So what a great transition. I love that DuckTales. I hope that everybody gives it a chance. What an unbelievably talented cast, and that so much of it pulls from lifetimes of Scrooge McDuck as an identity. That's my top 5 comic stories in history. So speaking of top stories in history, Bishop, one of my top 10 X-Men of all time. Lucas Bishop is brilliant, creative, exciting to read, and frankly, kind of God-given gorgeous, absolutely outstanding. He and Forge having this period where it's just kind of the two of them communicating. It feels like it's meant to be referential of the interim X-Men years in the 1980s, which were led by Forge and Banshee, as Bishop did not yet exist. But I really love it here. It's got a great moment. When we go to that future, and it's vaguely Days of Future Past, but also kind of Askani, and not really either. We open with Logan and Storm. Logan and Storm in Days of Future Past is a hallmark of comic book storytelling. We come back to it time and time again. Very exciting to have it here. And there was a moment we see like that. Kevo's brilliantly scrolling through the images now, and I think it's so great. There is a giant skeleton on the ground, and I keep thinking it's an Akanti, and can't get over that. The Akanti being a breathtaking, brilliant space whale that Storm befriends, because, Storm is friend to all creatures, great and small, except transphobes. She'll hit you with lightning. So I really thought that right off the bat, this episode gave a fuck and made it so effective right away.
I, as less of a comic fan, did not make any sort of Yas Hunty skeleton connections. And so this sequence for me was a little bit more fighting in a foggy mist until our friends showed up. But that was pretty cool. And the fact is, having immediately different and dynamic looks is very cool. Something that people always used to be like is, oh, it's so they can sell more toys. Yeah, who cares? It looks cool. I never cared that is why. It looks cool.
I'm detailing
too.
my little bitty pops. Buy more toys.
Yeah, no. You know, the second they make like a line of Power Rangers bitty pops with a command center, I'm gonna buy that. So like, yeah, no, I get it. Like, so this is cool. I liked it.
And speaking of characters that appear, characters that don't appear, I left a number of them out because we're going to mention next as we go through these episodes. But one character that I am saying has to appear soon, and I hope the chroma key doesn't kill this. My boy Dupe. Yes, in fact, this is my 80th piece of Dupe merchandise. I love him so much. He is the best, and it's cool if you don't know who Dupe is. Many people probably know him best as the thing on the T-shirt of the kid next to Negasonic Teenage Warhead in New X-Men E is for Extinction, but actually a major character running around the Marvel Universe for like 20 plus years now. Get cool, you know? And the overwhelming story here ties into the Askani clan. Now, at the time, it was pieced together across several books. You got elements of it in classic X Factor. I think it's 65 to 60 or 64 to 68, maybe 63 to 68. It's when Claremont and Whilce Portacio co-wrote and co-storied. Really great work, really beautiful storytelling. And then there's more of it throughout Cable's work. And one of the things that's really exciting is ultimately it comes due in Excalibur 75, but we discover that the figure that is promoting Cable as a prophet, child, hero, savior thing is this person named Mother Askani. Mother Askani is revealed to be Rachel Gray, Jean and Scott's child from another timeline, who loves her family so much she chooses to dedicate her life to making her family's destiny come true. It's a beautiful, touching moment, and it's so powerful, and it's underscored so well by the inclusion of characters like Ozymandias, who is a major Apocalypse character. I'm counting down the seconds till we get Blacksmith. I want Blacksmith.
I just want to clarify I didn't miss something in the episode. You don't mean here, right? It's revealed in the comics. That's a spoiler for the show.
It's revealed in the comics over time.
For the show, it was a spoiler, though.
I'm sorry, but I don't think a lot of people are listening to this that have not read the comics. This is kind of a niche program.
I'm just saying, first of all, for the YouTube channel, but also, you know, that is something that I find so interesting about this. And I am fully on board for you to tell me everything that I'm not catching in terms of X-Men spoilers and stories so that I can be down. But that is something that is very interesting that you and many X-Men fans need to be careful. Game of Thrones fans, I'm sure, felt the same way. And spoiling Ned Stark and the Red Wedding and all of those things. Yeah. But the fact is, no, nothing in this episode revealed. There were many things you pointed to that were very interesting minor hints, but they didn't even really hit it over the head. There were just hints as to who Mother Askani is.
There's that moment where she says it's a child's duty to do the hard thing, and like it's because she's their other child. It's so effective, so powerful. I was also moved by, in the image that Kevo has up, it's the image that Cable has just broken free of his shackles because Jean and Scott have helped him work through his power block. And Jean and Scott are still kind of trapped up in their cuffs. The outfits Jean and Scott are in are reflective of their 1980s X Factor outfit as clothes. This is a really cool way to blend X Factor with the adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix. So Jean proposes to Scott, and he's like, I'd be an idiot not to marry you. They get married, and I forget who designed her wedding dress, but it was a big deal. And they go on their honeymoon, and in the middle of their honeymoon, they are teleported to the future and given a chance to raise young Nathan to become Cable. And they live an entire lifetime. They become old. And because they can't tell him who they are and cause a feedback loop, they go by the names Slim and Red Dayspring. And that's why he takes the name Dayspring. And so there's a lot of really cool visual elements here that Wolverine looks like, I want to say it's Kubert and Hama Wolverine from right around when Electro Wolverine the Redeemer is set. Brilliant. I love a high pony. Like, my two favorite high ponies of all time are Madonna at the VMAs in that blue blazer number, and Storm in this. I think you're just talking about some fucking looks with an EW, but no ew. So I thought the visual references here were so spot on, down to Morph. Morph being this Morph, being Exile's Morph, and now being a part of an Exile story is hyper elevating of the identity that they are choosing to blend with these two characters. I had such a great time with the visuals of this episode. If nothing else, down to, as Kevo keeps showing, Morph becoming Thor to smash one of the Horsemen to represent the power that the X-Men have in this moment. This was, I'll be honest, the movement of the animation is not my moment. This is not vibe for me. Sorry about it. But the actual identity of the animation, beautiful.
You know, and I said to you, I can't tell if that is just the fact that we are getting old and cringe, and maybe that is just how animation is going to start moving, and we just need to accept it. It's just not very fluid, and I don't love it, but it is what it is. I really loved so much about it, though. I almost didn't understand what I was watching with that Thor moment, so it maybe happened a little bit fast. But that is exactly what we are talking about with what we love about all these things being in-house and being able to make references like that. You have to wonder what it would have been like growing up in a different timeline where everything was always under one banner. And what if we had always had X-Men movies where you could reference Thor, or Iron Man movies where you could have Spider-Man swing by in the background and just not have it be a thing. But because of all the contract splits, especially for the first quarter century of the 21st century, we haven't been able to do so much of that. But now, as we are starting to head toward the 2030s, we're able to do so many more things than we could 20, 30 years ago, and it is really cool to see.
I agree, and it's such a shame because one of my favorite things in the world is my love of the dichotomy of Marvel and DC, and I love Bat Family, Lantern Family, Super Family, Wonder Family, Vertigo. I love those banners, but even though they all belong to brothers, you didn't see Batman and Superman in the same movie until they discovered that they had the same mom name. Can I tell you that was the first time I'd caught it and thought to myself, the fuck?
I saw someone refer to the Snyderverse as the Marthaverse the other day. It was the best.
Get out. That is, oh my God, man. I only wish that George Washington was there and was like, my wife's name is Martha. So, happy 4th, everybody. So, the 250 never looked so dumb. So I really had a great time with this first episode, and I think the best thing that they did is they kept Apocalypse essentially in the shadows. If you spend the whole time going, but look how big he is, look how big he is, and then you show us how big he is, there's nowhere to go. Kept him on the sidelines, kept him a figure more than a character. And I think that was to the betterment of. I think that was to the show's advantage. So I think overall, this first episode, no character was wasted. Everybody, I mean, down to Logan getting nothing, nobody was wasted. Logan getting nothing, girl, give him nothing challenge, do it. And I loved this first episode, probably one of my favorite of the series, and I just thought it was a knockout.
Yeah, and nothing isn't even fully fair. He was there, he contributed. Part of it being an ensemble is that not every member of the ensemble gets to be the star every single week. Especially when you're the Fonzie, you can't expect every episode to be about you. Otherwise, you start to lose that Fonzie appeal.
I really want to see Apocalypse kick a jukebox.
Hey.
He goes by Daddy A in Krakoa, so A.
Daddy A.
This second episode was so extraordinary for so many reasons that I can barely put into words. This second episode was a love letter to a classic trope in comics, and the truth is, I could probably point to it a bunch of places, and unfortunately, some of the best ones that come to mind are by problematic authors, and that's a bummer. But I'm going to point to perhaps my favorite one of all time. During the Frank Miller run of Daredevil, there is an issue that literally barely features Daredevil. It is all about Foggy Nelson accidentally finding himself in the middle of like a gang war. And he goes by Guts Nelson and is doing his best Daredevil impression. Is just trying to seem tough. And me and Billy Club co-creator Tori Sheehan will tell you it is one of the greatest issues of any comic ever produced. It is about the earnesty of wanting to do right, even when it's scary and hard and big and feels insurmountable. The history of Marvel Comics dialing into what it means to take a minute and be braver than you are it's one of the greatest things about the entire House of Ideas ever. And this episode, this X-Force 97, summoned up all of my favorite moments of that ever. The opening title being different, Jubilee shining like the millennial she is. What's up, Jubilee would be 40, just deal with it. I thought, down to including, I barely could keep track. Series co-creator Jonah was watching it with us and pointing out characters like casually as we're reading. He's like, oh, and they're here, and they're here, and it was so exciting. We had Quentin, we had Monet, we had Val Cooper, we had the Cuckoos, we had Artie, we had Nature Girl. So for those of you who don't remember from a couple of months ago, I think TK and I said that the Manites are our all-time favorite mutant offspring. We had Manites, like a group of creatures that haven't existed in decades. What an unbelievable inclusion to make us happy. We appreciate it. We had Chamber, we had Nature Girl. That's literally almost exactly my Magneto was right shirt. Quentin Quire is my problematic fave. And I kind of feel bad about it sometimes, but I really, really don't ever. I think Ryan at Xavier's is the greatest arc of X-Men history. I really do. Peter David's X Factor showing up. This is one of the most important moments in comic history. Peter David's X Factor is famous for the therapy issue in which X Factor are told that they're basically out of control and have to sit down with a therapist. And Doc Samson, a Hulk therapist, gives them therapy. It literally changes comics forever. All of a sudden, you can't write a superhero comic without dealing with the psychological ramifications of what these kids go through, of what these adults go through, of what it takes to protect people. We have Annalie, we have Glob, Pixie, I caught Angel Salvatore. This was just an extraordinary exercise in proving that you understand what makes a media machine go. This was straight up Fraction's concordance engine. This was exactly what he was saying, that sometimes there is something that is so big, so cool, so amazing. It's just what makes reality work. Wait, is that Sync? Is that Everett?
Where?
Zoom in on the guy in the right, just past
Everett?
Quentin. Oh my God, it's Everett. That is Guy. Oh my God, stop it.
Let's see.
Is that Dust?
Jonah said Dust at one point. Yeah.
I can't get over this. This was such an incredible there's Nature Girl. I'm so overwhelmed at the amount of canon that was casually explored. This is a statement on understanding what makes people happy. My cuckoos, my precious, precious girls, my weapons. I love them so much. I think they're weapon 14. It might be weapon 13. It's so good. I mean, really. And Kevo, I felt so bad that so many of these characters are people and that's my Manite right there. There she is. She's so beautiful. So many of these characters are so incredible, and it's not that you didn't appreciate it because you saw all of these mutants and you heard me and Jonah like sob, but you saw all of these faces, and it had to add to your universal understanding of this storytelling.
Yes, and that's even the thing about it. Learning that they are all important figures is what made them more significant, and that is what you love to see when it comes to a program like this and being able to do a sequence like this. And you have these background prisoners. Why would they not be characters that are significant to the canon so that fans can have those reactions? I think back in the day when no one was monitored and everyone was on cocaine, it was really fun to just do whatever you wanted. And there were a lot of really fun and interesting consequences when it came to creating children's entertainment that way. That we ended up with a lot of really interesting characters as a consequence, because people did some really weird, coked out things sometimes. But now instead we live in the age of the Easter egg. We live in the age of Wikipedia and people being able to, this guy, I know this guy. I see this in so much X-Men
Glob
stuff
Herman
that you guys read. And I reacted to Glob. I know who Quentin Quire is. I reacted to Quentin. I know who the Cuckoos are.
Oh my God,
So,
it's Beak. It's Beak and Angel
yeah.
Salvatore. They're a married couple. They have 7 kids. Tito is everyone's favorite.
Yeah, no. So, while it's fun sometimes to go crazy, I also really love that it was so many genuine X-Men. They really know their audience, and they really know that even the audience they have that are only there because of the original animated series are going to want to see things that are based off of the comics, not just made completely from scratch. It's one thing to use the source material in fun new ways, but you want to pull things from the source material.
And I think that the pale kid in foofy clothing, I think he's with her. who is a second-generation New Mutant Hellions character that Emma Frost developed such a close relationship with that she and Scott like semi-adopt him until Celine comes in and fucks it all up because that's what she's good at. But I thought Emma Frost in this episode was like cunt of the highest order. She was beyond words. She was brilliant, funny, clever. The plot of this episode is it's essentially Uncanny X-Force as though it were led by Cable, featuring Psylocke and Warren. They recruit Jubilee and Beto, and they go to Emma, and they're like, we need to get ourselves a hand on War, and that's War from the 1980s original X Factor run, so it's a deep cut. It feels really good. Also, it's a bad haircut. He looks like an idiot, but it's fine. And then they wind up in battle against Peter David's X Factor minus Quicksilver for reasonable reasons. And in the course of this, X Factor kidnaps / abducts, I guess they think puts in custody, but no, it's government garbage. They abduct Jubilee, and Jubilee breaks out all of those awesome kid mutants that we've been mentioning all episode. And the way she does it is because Polaris pulls the same thing that she pulled in the comics, so it's a lovely reference to an incredible moment for an unbelievable character. I thought this episode was... Oh, I think that guy in the Hawaiian shirt might be Mondo. God, so many incredible references here. This is extraordinary. I just really felt like this episode understood what fans wanted. I was so glad that you had such a positive reaction to it, Kevo. At times it felt exclusionarily fandom and perhaps hard to follow because of all of its quick cuts.
I think keeping the fast pace probably even helped. I think if we had slowed down a little bit too much and tried to introduce any of the cameos to individually, it probably would have slowed up the works more. I'm someone who feels like the audience should be encouraged to do their own research. So I that is how I prefer it. I'm sure there are people who think even just the appearance of this many mutants is too much, but no, you're going to need a crowd, and it's good that there are all people who are all meaningful.
And I feel like one of the things that I can't say about most animated shows, perhaps any animated shows, since Daria and Clone High, is when you make that animated music tie-in moment work. It was Happy Nation in season 1, but like since the day Kevo met me, I have literally said, leave me lying here because I don't want to go. Nina Gordon is one of the most exceptional songwriters of her generation. I was just reading this article about how Tracy Bonham conceptually apexed in 1996 with Mother Mother, and I feel like you're missing down here the record where she finally got to play orchestral violin on her own alternative rock record. But like, I think about the women of essentially the Lollapalooza generation and what it meant to be a woman songwriter with compelling identity and self-assurance and a desire to tell your own story. And Volcano Girls by Veruca Salt is literally one of the most important female... There could be no Hailstorm without Veruca Salt. There could be no Kitty without Veruca Salt. There could be no The Donnas. Like, Veruca Salt were so seminal to the idea, or I guess ovarial, to the idea of women in music, that you couldn't have that identity we have now where women are allowed to be... I mean, I wish men would let women be whatever they want to be and just shut the fuck up already, but like, you couldn't let them be closer if it weren't for Veruca Salt and Nina Gordon and the expressiveness of Volcano Girls in particular. And it was a stunning moment because the desire to license this, the chance they took that people would know what's happening here, and not everybody does. I'm sure a lot of people watch this and just thought, oh, that's a fun song and it sounds old. But for those of us who understood that Jubilee had been around for 5 years or 6 years when that song came out, it's validating of a series of life choices that led us to watching this show. And I was stunned. I mean, you were there when I literally screamed as it started, because it's one of the most important songs of its era, and Jubilee, one of the most important comic book characters of her era, being this character now. God, there has not been a Manite in Marvel in 25 years, so I'm having a lot of feels right now.
The fact is, if we are centering so much of the X-Men 97 identity around the 1990s, with the way that Apocalypse literally in the episode was, we have to strike them at their most vulnerable, the 90s. Jubilee specifically is such a character who's so representative of that time period. It's important to remember that the X-Men, that the 1990s are not the only important era for the X-Men, but if you are going to focus on such an important era, you need to make sure that you are highlighting the characters that are so iconic of that era.
And honestly, we're saying Jubilee is iconic of that era. Nina, the Midnight I keep mentioning that I love so much, that little girl, Nina is the first character to be kind to Xavier after he manifests Onslaught. He is basically sentenced to governmental death, and Nina is kind to him. That little girl represents the desire to forgive our fathers on every level, and it's beyond words that they took the time to think about what it means to be an X-Man and show a broad spectrum of character. And there is something so Trinity in the Matrix about Jubilee in this sequence. So that opening number from the Matrix where Trinity is kind of playing the role of Neo, and that's even, I think, the story of the Matrix. Every single person there on the Nebuchadnezzar is a person who at one point they thought was the One, and so they can do the One-like things, and then when they discover what the One can really do, he can bend reality. It's kind of different. Jubilee has no illusions that she can bend reality. She just thinks she's here to kick ass, and that they chose to represent that ass-kicking identity. This has been unfortunately, of the last 10 episodes, we've had to talk about the amount of Asian appropriation that goes into American comics, because American comics owe so much to manga and anime and even 70s kung fu martial artsism. And Jubilee is so important as an Asian character, actually representing that. And now she is played and voiced by an Asian character. Seeing her get to have that moment and it not just be a white person who knows kung fu, that's incredible. And to give this character who represented, there was one Asian Power Ranger, but all of them knew martial arts. All of them were ninjas, big quotations there. And seeing her get to have this moment is sort of like acknowledging a generation that had to give this moment to young white men in so many cases and so many occasions. And I felt seen in my desire to know that the X-Men are honoring that identity in this sequence.
Yeah.
On the whole, the one thing I really didn't need at the end of the second episode was the bookend. However, the entire time this bookend is happening, where Cable is about to send the team back to the past, I'm going, he's going to say body slide time. He's going to say time slide bodies. He's going to, oh no. Because, they didn't quite codify the language. Seeing Cable immediately form a bond with Ship was such an important thing for me. I only wish he had called Ship Professor, which is his name for Ship. I am deeply affected by Ship. I think all ships should be sentient friends, and I talk to Micro like it's my friend. So I really loved a lot of what we got in this kind of, I don't even want to say bookend, almost like an epilogue to this episode. I wish it had been done maybe a little bit differently. It felt almost unnecessary, but we're not at the point yet where you can do like an episode and then a 5-minute animated epilogue. So instead, the episode just has to run a little long. But I was really glad to see the attention to detail of fandom that was put into this episode.
I didn't really fully get it until you pointed out that it brings his story full circle. I think because this episode focuses so much on Jubilee, but it really does bring us back to Cable, and it brings us back to his future after leaving us at such a crucial moment in his youth and leaving us wondering what comes next, to take us back to this and remind us that the time stream will stay protected, and instead that bookend scene, I'm not sure how I feel about it in terms of keeping every episode individual, but in terms of an ongoing narrative and keeping this a serialized program, I understand the want or perhaps even need to do things like that and to put that here. So I'll be curious to see how they play with things like that throughout the rest of the season, if that one stands alone or if that will be an ongoing narrative device that we'll see them use.
I hope that the show tries to balance this idea of arcs with the bigger picture all season long. I thought they nailed it this episode. I felt so supported as an X-Men fan. I felt like they understood what I was looking for. And yeah, they really did create a compelling story about exciting characters in familiar scenarios without overdoing it. If I want to read these original stories, I'm sorry, I'm just going to crack open Days of Future Past. I'm going to just open that book. It's not that I don't think that an animated show could do it right, but if what I want to read is Days of Future Past, I'm just going to fucking read Days of Future Past, guys. Doing something new like Days of Past Future, very cool, very fun. Giving me X-Force versus X-Factor, very cool, very fun, very compelling. Yeah. I'm so glad for the decision to, like you pointed out, do something unique to this property. Now, there are things I'd like. I would like it if Emma Frost became a member of the X-Men, because that's part of my identity of the X-Men. She's been a hardcore mainstay since 1994, and she's not going anywhere. I would like to see more Magneto and Xavier because, that's a classic gay couple, and I would love to see them. It was Pride in the US last month. It's Pride in the UK next month or this month. Let's have the moment. But so much of the story here is about the things we love and how they can come together for a new generation. Keep reinventing it, keep being exciting, keep telling the story in a new and different way. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, and that really is exactly what it is. And I love you saying that. And like I said, I love that you are such a fan who wants to see exciting new things, not just, as contributor Jonah is so fond of saying, reheated nachos. It's not that the problem that we had when we did our Phoenix coverage with either Simon Kinberg's adaptation of the Phoenix Saga is that they were not note for note adaptations of the Phoenix Saga. It's that they weren't really great. The original X-Men animated series Phoenix Saga adaptation was not note for note either, but they found an engaging and dynamic way of reinventing the story for television, and that is what they are continuing to carry on the legacy of doing with X-Men 97 by finding dynamic new ways to tell X-Men stories for television.
And that's where I've thought about going back to watch Evolution because it is so different than anything else X-Men. I don't know that I would want to do the original series 92 ever in podcast format. I don't know that it's self-supportive of that, but where things could go, talking about something as bold as Wolverine and the X-Men or Evolution, that's kind of exciting. And getting to talk about X-Men 97, that's the pinnacle, that's the apex, because this takes so many things we love, it takes so many years of continuity, and it elevates them.
I think if we were given advance enough notice about X-Men 97 ending, I would be interested in doing that, to do a full watch so I could compare. And that is one of the things that is tough about this era of media that we live in, is you never know if something is just going to not come back. But hopefully we push back into an era where, like with Wizards Beyond Waverly Place, you're given a final season that is 4 episodes. Even that is something, just give people conclusion, because that makes it so much easier to do something like this, where if you want to bring something back that fans really loved, leave it in a good place it nicely on the shelf so you can take it back down. And so we'll see what happens with that. I know we're picked up for a season 3. We'll see about season 4 and a future beyond that.
And I can't wait to talk about our future beyond that as a show. We have so many exciting things coming up. In our last few weeks, we have been doing a deep dive into Wolverine in the early 2000s, talking about things like origin and comparing it to Marvel Comics Presents Weapon X by Barry Windsor Smith. We have also talked about Wolverine, Son of Canada, the Logan Files by Frank Thierry and Sean Chen, from Wolverine 173 to 176, plus the launch of Weapon X with The Draft. Here we're talking about X-Men 97, Season 2, Episodes 1, 2, and then our next episode will be 3 and 4. From there, we're going to talk about Uncanny X-Men, X-Corps, The Brotherhood, and X-Factor, before turning our attention back to New X-Men, X-Force Ecstatics, Exiles, and more. We're going to keep giving you all the X-Men 97 you can handle all season long. This show isn't just a cultural moment, it's a fandom moment. And it's really exciting to get to talk about it. And Kevo, it means the world that you came out to talk about it with me. Where can everybody find you online if they want to follow your adventures outside of the X-Men?
You can find me on the socials at Kevo Really. That's Kevoreally. Nico, where can the folks find you?
You guys can find me all over this network. That's X's for Comics, X's for Show, HTML, that's Husbands Talking More or Less, and our Daredevil partner podcast, The Billy Club. You can find them on all of your podcast networks, on all of your YouTube channels, and things like Spotify and more. If you guys want to follow me personally, that's Nico Action, NicoAction. And if you like the X-Men theme you heard in the background, you can check out all of my music on places like YouTube Music and SoundCloud at Nico Action Music, NicoActionMusic. And I see you out there. I love seeing you guys comment, download, and stream. So do me a favor, like, comment, and subscribe so we know what you guys are looking for and we can make it happen for you over and over again. However, there are 3 things that are really important for me that you do. All 3 of them are by all the Biddy Pops, so they keep making them. I'm kidding. No, number 1 is please stay safe. Number 2, please be brave. And number 3, evolve daily. Who you were yesterday, that's X-Men 92. Who you are today, that's X-Men 97. And it's who you are tomorrow, that's the X-Men that you tell us about. And we can't wait to see that inside you. So until we come back, snicked bub.